Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday to you guys. I hope you guys are having a wonderful start to your weekdays, to your brand new week. Welcome to welcome to a brand new edition of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Marif Temi. Jumping right into it here, we had an unbelievably stacked weekend of basketball, stacked weekend of conference finals play. Finally got our first full weekend of NBA conference play. The final four of the NBA is set in stone, and one unbelievable weekend it was. We saw a game. We saw two game threes. We're seeing the start of game fours tonight, and we'll recap and preview all of the action that transpired over the last couple days. Starting first things first, we have to talk about the Indiana Pacers New York Knicks battle that took place in Indiana last night. Indiana, honestly, we have to give. Well, no, we can't start with Indiana because obviously the Knicks won that game, making it a 2-1 series. Indiana still in the lead, in that one, but the Knicks taking Game 3, and honestly, what was an unbelievable rally. A rally down 20 points in the first half, a game where it looked like the Indiana Pacers were going to trounce the New York Knicks at one point, going up by 20 plus in the second quarter, just going on an unbelievable run. But the New York Knicks stuck with it. They stayed in the game, and to be able to play the way they did down the stretch, we'll recap that game to start off the show. From there, we'll also go over to the game 3 between the Timberwolves and Thunder on Saturday night. Discuss what happened in that game. The Timberwolves pretty much putting a good beat down on the Oklahoma City Thunder in Minnesota. So we'll recap what happened in that game as well as preview who would benefit more from a win tonight in Game 4 between those two teams. Um, from there, we'll switch gears back over to the Pacers Knicks series. Discuss if there's any cause to pause for the Pacers after last night's loss, and then we'll also discuss the Celtics offseason plans. We're still seeing Jalen Brown being discussed, still considering offseason surgery on his knee, on his ACL. He had a partially torn ACL at the end of the playoffs. Um, We'll discuss everything that has gone down in Boston as well and give an update on their offseason plans. But yeah, before I move any further, as always, I'd like to remind you guys to please like and follow the show for more GSMC Sports Network content. Also, we get a number of questions from viewers that come in during the show, so to ensure that your question gets read on air, I ask that you use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net. This puts your question at the top of the list so that I see it. It also really helps out the show. Again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net for all your questions and comments. But let's get right back into it here because we have an unbelievably packed show today. I'm so serious. Like, I know I've said it before on the show. I know the first two rounds of the playoffs are usually the more interesting ones because there's more stuff going on, there's more games, there's more competitiveness. The different matchups, everything happening at once, the chaos of it is what draws people in. At least that's how it was for me growing up. That's how I fell in love with the game. It was always the first two rounds that I would watch almost every single game and just go game to game to game. Like, especially in the first round, there used to be 4 games per day on the weekends. So, obviously, the conference finals, it's the final four, it's the 4 best teams left in the NBA playoffs, the four teams left standing, and both matchups have been unbelievable. Seriously. Last night we saw the Pacers and Knicks go at it. Each game of that series has been unbelievable. Game 1 was picture perfect. Game 2, Pacers took care of business more profoundly and they made a more decisive win, but even then, it went down to the final seconds of that game. And then Game 3. My goodness, was Game 3 a phenomenal game. Game 3, if it wasn't for Game 1, Game 3 would be the best game of the series so far, hands down. The problem is Game 1 was just the best playoff game of the NBA playoffs so far. That's the problem with that. But what a phenomenal game we saw last night. The Knicks coming back from 20 points down. I'm not joking when I say 20 points down. This game, it was what was it? It was 13-7 early on, and before the Pacers went on a run to take the lead, 16-13. And then from there, it was honestly just like the game was over. It was over so quickly, or not over so quick, but the lead bloomed so quickly. It just felt like the Pacers grabbed the momentum and did not let it go. And when I say momentum, I mean in every single way. On the defensive end, forcing turnovers, drawing offensive fouls. On the offensive end, hitting their shots from three, using their depth, using their speed. It was hands down, all around unbelievable performance from the Indiana Pacers. What it looked like it was going to be, it looked like it was going to be a blowout in the second quarter. The Pacers were up by 20 points in the second quarter. Indiana screaming. Halliburton sticking out his chest, pointing his jersey up at the rafters, pointing at Reggie Miller. Reggie Miller going crazy on the telecast. It looked like the Pacers were going to win this game, not only just win it, but blow out the New York Knicks. That's what it looked like. It felt like, if you guys were watching the game, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. It felt like the Knicks were getting stuffed. They were getting smothered. They couldn't muster any offense. If you watch the game, the way that the Pacers were playing defense, they went out past the three-point line, picking up every New York Knicks player from half court, and it just looked like there was nothing that the Knicks could do. They looked like they were dead in the water, and Pacers on the other side forcing turnovers, getting in transition, being able to shoot the ball that they were. The lead picked up really quickly, and it added up really quickly. So it looked like a trouncing from the Pacers, and I give them a lot of credit. That second quarter was they dominated that second quarter, but my goodness, did we see a turnaround? The second half rolls around. It was honestly, it was at the end of the first half. It felt like that the Knicks just kept hanging around. The Pacers would hit a shot, they would knock down a shot, they would bloom the lead all the way up back up to 16, 17 points. And then the Knicks would come down and hit a three or hit a two, and then get chippy again once again on the defensive end. It looked like they were just playing strong defense, the best that they could. And then whatever they got on offense, they would just take it and switch. They would focus on the defensive end of the ball, trying to make sure they could get as many stops as possible. And then on the offensive end, just try. Focus on the defense and let the offense come around. That looked like that's the philosophy the New York Knicks walked into the game with, the approach that they took. And honestly, it worked. It paid dividends because it worked, plain and simple. When you have Karl-Anthony Towns shooting the basketball the way he did in the second half, the way he was able to hit clutch shots down the stretch in the fourth quarter specifically, Jalen Brunson was phenomenal in this game. OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges. It was a phenomenal game all around. On the offensive end, I'd say, especially in the second half. There is one thing that we do need to talk about with this New York Knicks team, and I'm trying to think if I want to discuss it right now or if I want to bring it up later, because we do have another segment coming up about this series. I might save it. Actually, no, I'll touch on it now and I'll touch on it later. How about that? When you think about this New York Knicks team, you're thinking about an offense that is full of stars, star-studded offense. You're led by Jalen Brunson, anchored by Karl-Anthony Towns. You have Mikal Bridges. You have OG Anunoby. You have Josh Hart. You have a group of guys. Everywhere you look, you have star players. Pretty much. You have that's what you look at when you see the Knicks offense. However, there is no excuse for the amount of. First of all, we have to talk about Jalen Brunson first when we talk about this. 5 fouls. How many did he foul out of this game? 5. Jalen Brunson had 4 fouls through the first half. In the first half, it was a big reason why the Pacers went on the run that they did, because Brunson wasn't on the court for much of the time, and every time he was on the court, Aaron Nesmith, Tyrese Halliburton, Andrew Nembhard were drawing offensive fouls on him. They were I've never seen Jalen Brunson play like that. And if you're the anchor of your team, if you're the star player on your team, you cannot be getting into foul trouble that quickly like this, because it puts your team in a handicap. They can't put you on the court. They want to save you for the later in the game. They want to you keep fouling. They have to put you on the bench. Tom Thibodeau has to sit you down. Has to put Miles McBride in. You're just a hindrance. It's plain and simple. That's what it is. And it was a big reason why, if you even look at Karl-Anthony Towns, funny enough, when you look at Karl-Anthony Towns, what was a big reason why the Timberwolves decided to walk away from him, to trade for Julius Randle in the offseason? Because he kept getting into foul trouble in the playoffs. And that was a big reason. He was having trouble guarding Jaren Jackson Jr., having trouble guarding against the Mavs. It was the big three that they had there with Jesus Christ, Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, and PJ Washington. Sorry, my brain's blanking right now. That he had a big problem. Karl-Anthony Towns had a big issue with when it came to guarding all three of those guys last year, and he kept getting into foul trouble. When you see Jalen Brunson having 5 fouls in a game, how many did Cat have? Cat also had 5. Brunson had 5. OG Anunoby had 3. Mikal Bridges. Oh, Mikal Bridges only had 2. But when you go down the line, there's a lot of players. When you get into foul trouble early and it's your star players, you fall into a deficit pretty quickly, and it has a substantial effect on the game. When you see what SGA had to go through in Minnesota 2 nights ago, and we'll discuss that in the next segment. It was a big reason why the Timberwolves won that game so decisively. That's a handicap that the Knicks put themselves in last night, and somehow they pulled themselves out. And it's going to be a big discussion of this game, but it was an incredible rally down the stretch. Even in the fourth quarter, the Knicks outscoring the Pacers 36-20. And yeah, it was a phenomenal game. But this is why I have 2 segments designed for these games now, because you have to. There's too much to talk about. These games are massive. Every game is important, and every game is so close. So we have a lot to discuss with both of these series happening at once. But I'm going to take a short break. Coming up next, we're going to switch gears over to the Western Conference Finals. Recap Game 3 between the Timberwolves and Thunder. What went wrong for the Thunder in Game 3? And can the Timberwolves keep it up? So we'll discuss both of those things in the next segment coming right up. You're watching the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Don't go anywhere.